All right, welcome to the show. This is episode 79, and we're going to be talking about randomness. Randomness. It sounds really lame at first, but it's actually really cool.
It's lame because everyone uses that word, and I do not think it means what they think it means. Like, I work with
Random.
teenagers, so I hear, "Oh my God, that's so random! Oh, he's just so totally random," when it means like I don't know what they mean by that actually. It's like
Yeah,
unexpected,
what do they mean? Yeah, that must be it. Oh, man.
out of the
Yeah.
expectations.
It's so random. I hear that all the time.
It's so random.
I don't
Stop,
think,
stop being
can you,
random.
plus, yeah, like we mentioned in the first half of the show, people's expectations of what random produces is totally different. They just mean a mix of things, an equal representation of different aspects. That's what they think whenever they
Right.
think of random. Because they're like, how much, if you took a random sampling of yellow balls, blue balls, and red balls, how many do you think each one would get? And they're like, well, the most likely would be three balls, and three balls if they took nine. And then I'm like, no, no, it's not. That's equally as likely as anything
You
else
know
that
what?
you
I
might
think
draw.
maybe D&D helped us understand what random meant earlier than most people. Like it seems like an intuitive concept to us because we grew up with bell curves, right? Like we know that 18s are rare and 3s are rare when we're rolling 3d6,
Uh,
and that you're getting a lot of 10s and 11s with that system. And so we just
mhm.
kind of get used to the idea of like random number generators having like trending toward the middle on
Yeah.
like on 3d6s, for example, or I don't know, but it might backfire too because there's so many D&D superstitions that crop up with when dice are involved, right? Like my lucky dice and my unlucky dice, and these
Yeah.
dice have been rolling hot for me, so I'm gonna keep using them because they're luckier than this other dice. Like, or oh, you just used my dice and used up a 20. That should have been my 20. Like, so maybe D&D doesn't help with people understand randomness because I've seen way too many just bad ideas about how dice work.
Oh, and we are not wired to understand randomness, and we're not wired to like randomness because, to assume that it's a thing because they've done this with like pigeons and everything else, and college students because people are like people aren't like animals. It's like yeah, they're exactly like them. Watch, and you set something like a red light was one of them on a timer, a random timer, and it just goes off every once in a while while they're sitting in the room while they're waiting on the experiment or they think they're waiting on the experiment, and it just goes off occasionally. It's like meh. They always think it's not always, almost always think it's something that they did.
That
They're like,
triggered it.
and then yeah, it happens again. And they're like, "What am I doing? What's going on?" And then like it happens again, and they're like, "Oh man, is this? I think it's every time I move, so I'm just gonna sit super still and not barely breathe." And like you get the weirdest behaviors out of
Yeah,
people.
we love causality as a species,
Yeah,
but we hate random.
we do, and we've shown up in multiple experiments. I mean, hundreds that we do not understand it, and we don't assume it ever. Like we typically just think like, let's see, there's probably some causal agent. I just haven't identified it yet, and then we're so so quick to jump on the causal train by like anything that precipitated or
Yeah,
anything that came on right before it.
like
So
and it
yeah,
can get horrifyingly out of hand, right? It's like, well, gotta do the virgin sacrifice or the sun won't come up, you know. Like that's kind of.
yeah. I'm gonna have to rip his heart
Oh.
out of his chest while he's alive, and then eat it in front of him. Like that was actually a ritual.
Yeah,
So yeah,
we
that's
yeah.
insane.
Yeah, terrible. But the reason we're talking about this is because randomness or is there a better word than randomness? Like a more that feels like not
Randomicity
a
is
real word.
randomicity is the actual word that we
Is
use
it
in
randomicity?
stats. Yeah, which sounds weird, right?
Yeah,
It
okay.
sounds random, right?
It's so
So
random.
random.
So totally made up and random.
I'm sure
Um,
randomness is also a word. I just never heard of it.
yeah, so the element of random, randomnicity,
Being random,
it
man.
plays a crucial part in video games, especially because video games are really good at doing that kind of random things. Like the computers are doing all the math behind the scenes, so it's easier than like in D&D where we're having to roll dice and count up numbers.
Wait, something just occurred to me.
Hmm.
Random doesn't exist in nature, and the concept of random is just something we made up because we didn't understand things and we thought that they had no cause. And that's
Right,
the
because
idea
even
of
a random
random.
number generator isn't completely random.
Yeah, even in real life, we have a hard time finding. No, what was it? Shit, I can't remember now. But we think a lot of things are like like unprovoked when they're clearly provoked. Like one
Like
example is
uncaused causes.
yeah, people think that kind of thing, and really it's like people will say like I get depressed some days and other days I don't. And our first thing that we do, well, first we talk about the ABC triangle, like affect, behavior, cognition. But the next module, once they kind of get that, is that you start recording your sadness, both the level, the severity, and when it occurs, and things that happen before it. Because there is a reason why you're being sad, and they just don't understand it. That's when people are like, "You get depressed, chill out," and I'm like, "That's a useful sentiment for the public." Because people should not be blamed for their depression or not knowing why they have it, but you do have a reason why. We're organisms, we're stimulus response, and 100% of the time, people are able to identify it. It just takes a little time.
But you're saying
And
there's
you're like,
no random things in nature, like gene mutations or which chromosome you inherit from your parents, like that isn't ruled by chance?
That's a good point. I don't know. Like, I think that there's probably a mechanism there, and we just don't know it yet. In fact, doesn't all of science assume that? Don't we
Yeah.
go looking for that?
Well, I think that if you get down to the quantum level, like there's probably everything is. Who was it? There was an early naturalist philosopher who said like if you knew all the data, you could predict everything. You'd basically be a prophet. Like you could just tell the future.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think there must be a point where it gets down to like when it gets small enough where it just is, for all intents and purposes, random to as far as our ability to predict it or not.
Yeah, it's a useful concept, randomicity. But I
But really,
think
it's just a lack of information more than
yeah. And because I guarantee the idea of randomness predated the idea of quantum theory, right? Like I'm pretty sure we thought things were random, and we constantly do, and then we find that there's a cause for it.
Right. So it's not really random as
gaps.
much as it's random to us at this moment with what the information we have. But there's a mechanism that's invisible that we can't see. Just like a random number generator is not really random, but it essentially is to a human.
Right. Like, is randomness just like the inability to spot a pattern? Because like that's kind of, man, I don't know. This is getting deep quick. That's not where I expected this to go. But
yeah, no.
It's like
does randomness exist? Let's just go on the premise that there are random elements for now, because for all intents and purposes, when I roll a dice on Mario Party, I have no control over the number of that dice that's going to pop up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think. I know random number generators are used all the time in probably every game, but that's funny because that's not a reflection of reality. But anyway, randomness in games, it serves a purpose, right?
Like, no. So here's the thing. Like when you look at a game, they all have some element of random chance. Even like a game of chess, there's an element of like who goes first. It's kind of random if you're playing it to be fair, and that gives you a slight advantage. And chess is the most symmetrical, balanced game I could think of at the time. But games kind of rely on random chance. So on one of the scale, maybe you have Smash Brothers where it's just all items are turned off and it's a flat final destination stage. It's skill versus skill.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not where Smash Brothers is at its most fun, I think. I think one part of the fun of Smash Brothers is like that shell appearing out of nowhere, the mushroom or the star, where you grab it and then like the game turns around. It gives it kind of this exciting element. And so it adds more excitement, but it also adds an element of equalization to the game. Like I actually prefer playing with items on because it kind of helps that those random elements, I'm still going to win more than I lose, but there's a chance that the underdog can beat me when something goes his way.
Mm-hmm.
Like something pops out of the background and kills me, and I'm like, oh, nice. It kind of keeps it more fair.
But it's equally likely that, because that's how statistics work, is that you'll get something that's incredibly strong and you'll beat him even worse.
Sure. But if you look at there's two results, like I'm going to win or I'm going to lose, my chances of losing go up the more randomness gets involved. And you really see that in games like Mario Kart, where there's it's not random because it's kind of tilted. Like the blue shell as an item is universally hated by a lot of people. Universally by everyone, but you know what I mean. The blue shell is a very hated item, but I like the blue shell because it kind of gives that element of like the best driver is not always going to win. It makes it more fun for everyone else.
Yeah.
It kind of, I don't know, I'm more communist when it comes to gaming, where I like to have the most fun for the most number of people and not just for the asshole who owns the game and plays it every day.
Yeah.
And so that's where Mario Party comes in, because that's the game we played last week a lot, where this one is super random, right? Like it's just whoever happened to roll the best dice gets stars, whoever rolled the worst dice gets stars taken away. And JT, it felt like to him that he was always getting fucked over by the random number generator, because and to hear him tell it, he'd always be in first place up until the last stretch, and then something would happen, he'd lose all of his stars. Now that's not how I remember it. I remember that happening maybe twice out of 6 games, but you know how we are. We remember the things where we get fucked over a lot more than when it didn't happen. So in JT's mind, mind, he was always getting screwed by the random number generator, which was hilarious to me because sometimes he really did deserve the win and he wouldn't because of the random numbers would happen. And so I guess I wanted to ask, like, is that a good thing or a bad thing, or is it just like depending on the game, how randomness affects the gameplay and whether it serves a useful function? Like, is it useful that JT just lost all of his stars and he should have won the game but didn't?
Yeah.
Because our sample size is 6 games. The computer won. There were 3 players in the computer. The computer won twice. I won the other 4 games.
Wow.
So if it's purely random, you wouldn't expect those results.
Well, I mean, you would, but if you played 6 games.
Yeah, would that be as equally likely as me winning 1 or 2 games?
Well, in one instance, yeah. If you played again 6 times, like multiple times, and yeah, but like, because you're kind of asking, if you dipped your hand into like a bag full of like 3 different kinds of colored balls, for example. This is how we usually talk about in statistics when we're teaching it. And like when you pull 6 out, like what are the chances that all 6 are black or all 6 are blue? It's equally likely as any other scenario. But if you do it multiple times, then you have a sampling distribution, which is a number of samples.
So if we're taking 1 game, it's equally likely that I'm going to lose or win, or I have a 1 in 4 chance of winning if it's random. And if we take a second game, I have a 1 in 4 chance of winning that game, and I have a 1 in 4 chance of winning the next game, and the next game, and the next game, and the next game. But over time, we should see like a spread, right? Like I should win maybe a fourth of the games overall. Yeah,
and this is where I disagree. Like I have really fought this one out for a long time, and they call this a gambler's fallacy. And in specific examples, this is a fallacy. But it is. I actually got a C in my first statistics class because I fought this principle so hard, and I actually on my because I'm stupid, on my midterm I even argued against it, and of course failed. And I got a C in the class, and I had to retake it because you have to have a B if it's in your major course of study if you're going into science. And so I was like, God damn it, because this is not true. When people say that, like, I flipped a coin 80 times and it was heads, on the 81st flip, which one is it going to be, heads or tails? And I'm like, more likely tails. And they're like, wrong, gambler's fallacy. I'm like, false, regression of the mean. I didn't know what the word was back then or the phrase was, but I knew it was a thing. I was like, no, that happens. Like, if it's equally likely and each incident is a 50-50 chance, over time, you'll get a representative sample if you take enough samples. All of statistics is based on that premise, the premise that if you take enough of a randomly sampled, you're going to get
it's going to regress to the mean.
It's going to be a representative sample of the population, and that's called sampling distribution. That all of statistics is based on that. If that isn't true, then statistics don't work, and we know statistics.
Then we have to throw bell curves out the window if that doesn't actually happen.
Yeah, and that's absolutely not true. Like I demonstrate this multiple times whenever I'm teaching this class. It's like as I say, all right, so let's take an example, and then I take a bunch of like a random sample of whatever. Like I'll say what are your ages?
A character, and you do you roll an 18. Like, yes, your next chance of rolling an 18 is also like whatever the chance was for rolling the first one, but your chances of rolling 18s for every character, you never see that happen.
Yeah, exactly. So I always say no.
Stat.
I'm always like, that's not true. That you're not equally likely to roll an 18. People are like, yes, you are. And I'm like, no, you're not, because as long as it's fair dice, which is what we call them stats, but yeah, as long as it's fair, you would predict that. Let's say this is the 100th time you rolled an 18. The 100th and first, would you be less likely to? And people would argue me until they were red in the face. And this is what most people say, and all statistics books show otherwise. Until I finally, in grad school, one of the guys, Nick Prince, he actually published his own software to do statistics and wrote his own book. Like he's like nerdy level statistics, like to the point where he doesn't have a life and like he looks kind of geeky. Even he was like, oh. Yeah, you're talking about regression to the mean, like if you take enough sampling distributions over time, that those sampling distributions will somewhat represent the population. And I do this in my classes. Like I'll say, all right, so you're 18, or like give me the ages, and they always, it's always negatively skewed, so it's, it looks like a whale sort of, right? And most people are 18, or it's positively skewed actually. Most people are 18, and then you get a couple like old timers in the 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever. And then I say, all right, so randomly, so I'm just going to close my eyes and like put my hand around, or point around, and then I'm going to stop randomly. And then I want you to shout out your age. And then they do that. And over time, if you take enough of those samples, that being a random sample, then it starts to show what the population is. Because if I record it, I'm like, okay, so 82 of you are, 18, 12 of you are 19 or whatever. And then I draw it out on the board like as a histogram or a bar chart. Another way to say that is you'll see that the sampling distribution eventually looks just like the curve. So if that's true, and if something is truly 50-50, like a flip of a coin, over time you should see a smoothing out of those two. They should be 50%, 50%. So
Right.
whenever you take enough of the samples, including, there'll be like 1,000 times heads, what's the next one? Tails. False. Oh, you're so dumb, gambler's fallacy. I'm like, false. That's absolutely false. Yes, a lot of textbooks say that. I feel personally that they're wrong, and I feel that I've argued that successfully, and I've demonstrated it through statistics, and people still argue with me. And the gambler's fallacy is based on a different thing, and I think that people, because they say, well, it doesn't matter. It's not like the coin remembers, because this is the argument against it. That it's
Right.
not like the coin remembers that I got a bunch of heads. I'm like, no, of course it doesn't remember. But if it's a fair coin, and we've shown demonstrably that flipping a coin, is 50-50 in the past. We know the population is 50-50. Then yes, this sampling distribution must at some point begin to curve back. And then if you look at like higher level statistics stuff, it's called regression to the mean, which is there's literally an entire statistical technique called regression that this is based on.
Mhm.
And so I knew I was right. Like I was like 16, and I was like, no, I'm not very smart in math, but I kind of think this is the thing. And I always just believe people because I was like, I guess it's a fallacy.
Right.
But now I'm like,
Because again, otherwise a person with all 18s would be like you would see as many of those as you see like any other like spread of numbers, because it's like it's all equally probable. It's all 1 out of 8. It's all out of whatever the stats are for rolling an 18.
Yeah, and I understand the argument against it. Whereas people say like,
Dice don't have memory,
tails,
coins don't have memory.
yeah, tails, heads, tails is just as likely as tails in one sample. And then I'm like, I understand that's a useful abstraction. I understand that it's like when you said the 6 balls and you get not 6 balls. You didn't say 6 balls. 6 games and he won. The computer won 2. You won 4.
Mm.
Like you can either. It depends on how you abstract this, whether people will agree with you. And this is where I caught Nick, the professor, the guy who did the stats. He was the stats nerd. As I said it depends on how you abstract this, right? And he's like, well, no, you're drawing 6 balls out, like I had mentioned. Like, if you draw 6 balls out, you got 4 and 2. And then it's like, or you could see it as a serial sampling distribution, like when I closed my eyes and pointed at the class. Like you could say each one is a sample, or are you saying all 6 are a sample? In which case, at one point, you can begin making inferential statistics from that, which inferential statistics means you infer something from math, which is most statistics people are thinking of when they think of stats. Inferential statistics have to work, or it has to work that way, or inferential doesn't work. And so it depends on where you arbitrarily draw the lines around the sample, like which sample you're taking, one ball, or are you taking 6 balls at a time? Like that's an absurd statement. I don't know. Anyway, random. The point is, random is
random, and in this particular game, it was the computer won the first game when none of us had played before. I won the next 4 games. Then I got super drunk, and the computer won the last game. So like that's just to say like there is an element of chance, but you can't disregard the skill. It's like poker, right? Like you can get a bad hand, but a good poker player.
Poker's all skill.
Yeah, poker is a lot skill, but you can get a bad hand, and a good poker player can still turn that to his advantage, or squeeze out a higher win percentage off of a bad hand than a bad poker player could. Yeah. So let's say it was like a coin flipping contest, and your base rate is 50%. Like a good poker player could get that up to like maybe 60 or 70%, and just through bluffing and like knowing when to fold them and when to hold them, when to walk away, all those other cliches. So what I like about Mario Party is it really like. It takes skill lower, like the skill to luck ratio, skill goes lower than in most games, but it's still there enough to make it interesting for me to want to play, where I still feel like I'm going to win more than I lose despite what the dice do.
Yeah, and when people talk about, like, whenever I shit on poker for being random, people are like, it's not random. How do you think people make all that money? And I'm like, well, the same way that casinos are rich. Casinos are rich because blackjack has a 51% bias towards the house. That's all it takes. That extra 1% over time is going to add up. And so good poker players, are going to win, they're going to lose. But
they're
over
play
time,
enough games that they can eke out an advantage with the little extra skill they have.
Yeah. By looking and saying like, oh, there's a lot of, maybe hearts on the table, and I feel like that person's going for a flush, so probably less likely that it's a flush. I'm going to bet against it, and that kind of thing. And a lot of it's reading people more than it is anything else, I think. But it's all based around a game of chance. So eking out a win is, I would say, exactly like poker. But a lot of people. But you just made. It sounds like you made a contradictory statement. You also said that you like games more whenever there's less chance or something. So, but then now you're kind of arguing for it.
No,
How do you feel about that?
I think I like when the skill level's different. I like chance to have more of a factor than skill. Like if I was gonna put a percentage on it, right? Like let's say 100% is like just all skill, right? And then 0% is like of skill is just like flipping a coin, and whoever gets the most heads wins.
Hmm.
Like I'm not interested in 0% at any time. I'm interested in 100% if I'm playing somebody who is equally skilled as me because that's interesting. But when it's a bunch of casual people playing at a party game and like just having fun, they're all going to come in with different amounts of skill, and I want everyone to feel like they could win that game. That's what makes it fun for me. And so for there, I'd rather have like maybe 60% of its luck and 40% skill, or some kind of differential where I'm still gonna, if I'm the most skilled player, I still have a higher chance of winning, but it's not a sure thing.
Yeah, and that's why you handicap yourself like by picking a shitty character sometimes. But
Yeah, or just play. That's where games like Mario Party I think have value to me as a video game. Is because it's a game we can all play from varying levels of skill, and I might just get fucked over for no reason, and it's fun. It's everyone else can win sometimes instead of just never winning. Like if you play like a professional Street Fighter player, like you'll probably never beat him because it's very skill based and not a lot of chance. And I feel like that's fun when everyone's in the same tier of skill, but when there's just everybody's playing, like we're all good at different things, we're just having a good time. It's like the democratization of fun, you know? Like you don't like most games are built on a meritocracy system, like the best player is going to win. I think there's room for games that are not meritocracy based, where there's blue shells that just fuck you over if you're in first place, or there's random Mario Party stars. It's like, oh, you went the fewest number of spaces and you lost the most games. Here's a bonus star for that. Have fun. Like I feel like that's fun too because it puts more of an element of chance in there, and the results are not as certain. Like to me, uncertainty is what makes a game interesting, and that's why high-level play I want lots of skill involved because there's still room for uncertainty there because you don't know they're both really skilled players who's going to win. But in low-level play or mixed levels of play where there's different skill levels, in order to have uncertainty, I need more elements of chance.
yeah, I think you hit on it right there, and I think some people are starting to realize that. Like for example, Blizzard got hit because Hearthstone, which is their collectible card or trade card game, no, collectible card game, that most people have heard of by now. It's got a lot of people that play it. They're adding in more and more chance and randomness, and they're also doing that in a lot of their games. And people kind of were shitting on them because they're like, well, you're taking out the fun of it, and I think that because the last expansion to come out was goblins and
Gnomes
goblins
versus
and
goblins.
no. Yeah, that's it. And there was so much random stuff. I mean, probably like a third of the cards had some random effect, if not more. I'm trying not to exaggerate, so I'm being conservative. I'm thinking half right now.
That's right. Like that's how I would picture goblins and gnomes playing. Like it's just random stuff exploding and people getting shat on for no reason.
Yeah. That's funny because I was a gnomish engineer in World of Warcraft, and you get random effects on that, and I wouldn't use those in my competitive games when I was really serious about the game, but I would whenever I was just fucking around because it's fun. So yeah, there is a kind of a dichotomy there, at least intuitively. But anyway, now I'm running off of that thought.
Hearthstone was getting like ragged on for being too random.
And then but they kind of defended it by saying, well, there's a couple things. One, you either make your game for the competitor or for the spectator, and it depends on what you want to do, right? Like wrestling, like Olympic judo type, or judo or wrestling, right? You want no randomicity. You want everyone to wear the same thing. You want everybody to be under the same rules, the same weight. So like, all that, you want to hold everything equal.
As much as possible.
Because over time, yes, random variation will filter out, and you'll get an average that represents the actual population average. In other words, your the actual skill, the people winning over time will be the people who are better. Just because that's how variance works, But if you want a one-shot deal, you're going to have to control for all that, right? So that nothing interferes. But things like the UFC, for example, which is not, it's attempting to see who's better, but it's also, they highly select for strikers, so rather than wrestlers or grapplers, because people like to see knockouts. because you stay glued to your screen, right? You're like,
Mhm.
I can't walk away. And I do this too. Like if there's two Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys, I can figure out what went on if I like walk away and I come back. I'm like, oh, okay, he's in a like a side mount or whatever, or he's in a half guard, so I know that he passed that guard, but he didn't quite get the whole way. Got it. Like I know what's going on, and I'm not. There's no threat that like someone's gonna get finished if nobody's in a dominant position. Anyway, it's not that thrilling, right? It's very
Mhm.
highly technical, and it's very athletic. Like you will die doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's so hard, but it doesn't have that same eyes glued to the set. So the people who run the UFC, they do select for strikers. People, but it's so you get more variation there, more random effects, right? Or you get more variance. But that makes it more fun for a spectator. Like if I'm
Mhm.
watching you versus someone of equal level, let's say JT was as good as you at Smash Brothers.
Mhm.
If I'm watching you fight, it's not that fun to watch you guys play on Final Destination, the map with no stuff on it,
Right.
and then you turn all the items off. I love it whenever I see like a Starman come down. I'm like, oh fuck, oh my
Yeah,
god,
game
that's fun to
changer.
me.
Right, like I don't watch professional Smash Brothers streams because it's just Final Destination, no items. I don't find that as fun to watch as like, the randomness of fate like stepping in and oh my
Yeah.
god, that just blew up for no reason and now you're flying away. Like I think that's way more fun to watch.
Yeah, yeah, and people got upset about this for Hearthstone, the Hearthstone community, because there's a lot of randoms that got put in there, and people are like, dude, people are making their livelihoods off this, and under single and double elimination tournaments, like you could get screwed twice out of drawing two bad hands, because there's your first, you draw your first hand, you mulligan, and then let's say that one's bad too, you're like, oh shit, like I'm just gonna straight up lose. If the other guy has a power start, I'm gonna die,
Mm.
which is true. But and in a single elimination, that might be it. That was your two draws, and now you're fucked. You're done. But if you're playing one game apiece, but like and a bunch of pros started getting real pissy and like talking shit. But then a couple of the other pros, and I think this was really smart, were like, shut up. This game isn't. No game ever is made for you, the competitor. And if it
Mhm.
does, it dies quickly. Chess is super even, not
Yeah,
fun to watch. Like
not a
so.
great like scene.
Yeah, guess how much money pro chess players are making. Yeah, guess how much like pro Dota players are making. Yeah, like people want to see shit where it's fun to watch, and to make it fun to watch, you have to have like random effects or like these big moments of high risk, high reward. The oh moments or
Yeah, the Hail Mary pass, right? Like the in
yeah.
football or the thing that has a small chance of working, but if it works, oh my god, it's a game changer.
Yeah, and so yes, it sucks for you, but in the long run, it means you make more money even if you aren't winning all the time. You're making more than if you played an even game and you were winning all the time. It's like
Mm.
pro chess player. Most people play that, and no one comes to watch, and even if they do come to watch, you're doing it for free, you're doing it just to use better. Pro like League of Legends match, and you're gonna make a shit ton of money if you
And how
win.
many of those League of Legend matches are determined by like a crit at the right time, or like
Yeah.
one of those elements of chance kicking in? It's
And,
less
and
chance
even,
based than Hearthstone, but there's always a little bit of randomness.
Yeah, that's like the thing that I think it would be cool to dispel is just the fact that like there's always some sort of something, like maybe even in like so I was talking about Greco-Roman wrestling in the Olympics, and both people are of equal weight. They tested them, they made sure they didn't take any performance enhancing drugs. Everything's perfect. They're in an arena, so there's no weather. It's not like it's raining or anything. One guy's
Mm.
bad, slippery or whatever. It's very controlled, and judges are watching everything and making sure no one interferes or shouts anything. We got to make sure everything's fine. Still, like one guy might have jet lag, the other one doesn't. There's always some
Element of chance.
inbalance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like over time. That guy's an Olympic, Greco-Roman wrestler because he's been doing it for a long time and winning for a long time. And then
Yeah.
somebody decided to sponsor him, and he tried out and he won. Like it's still there's variance in everything, and this just makes it more fun to watch, I think.
Mm. So I was approaching this as randomness makes it more fun to play because everyone feels like they have a chance, like more fun to play in a game where there's different skill levels, because everyone feels like they have a chance to win. Mario Party being my example, like I might be better at some of the mini games, but I could still lose in the end because of random chance, and that makes it more fun. Like if I win every game, it's not as fun. In fact, that literally happened. Like JT quit playing because I was just winning all the time, and then we came back and played it later once he recovered. Like you just get less interested in games, you have no hope of winning.
Yeah.
So I was
Oh,
looking
shit.
at it from that level, but you're also approaching it from an esports level where randomness also makes it more interesting for the spectator, which makes it better for the industry.
Yeah, because I would like if you guys played and he got a Starman and beat you, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna watch that again. I want to see that again. Like,
Like that moment where
go
the
again.
star appeared and he jumped and
Yeah.
got to it before I did.
Yeah, and then I'd be like, rematch, rematch. I would be invested in seeing you guys play again. I'd be like, oh, if that star hadn't been there. And I may say something. This is what's funny about humans. We often think we know what we want, and we don't. And so, like, you're not really. It's like whenever you're angry, sometimes you're in a bad mood, and someone goes, what's wrong with you? And you kind of have to think about it. You're like, I don't know. I guess I got up on the wrong side of the bed. I don't know. You're trying to
Find a
figure
reason.
out why you feel that way.
Right.
Yeah, and we're not very good at it as humans. But the point is that, and funny thing is, we think we're supposed to. They're like, you can't argue with him. You don't need a psychologist to tell you why you're depressed, or whatever. And I'm like, sometimes you don't, but sometimes you do. We're pretty bad at that, of knowing why we do things. But, yeah. So I may be like, oh yeah, I definitely want to see you on Final Destination. Just play on that boring map. But then I watch it, and like 2 or 3 of those games, I'm done. It doesn't matter who's playing, how much you hype up the fight. I'm done. I'm done watching. But if I know that there's a chance that something could happen, like the ground open up and swallow you, and then you have to fight it out, then that's hilarious for me, and I love it. And that's good for you, because I'm saying, David, play again. And if you're a professional or just someone who likes playing it, it's like, oh, you're gonna watch me? Sure.
Yeah,
like,
it makes more demand for streaming in general.
Yeah, and it's like in basketball. Like in basketball, I was flashy, right? I tried to learn a bunch of weird tricks, and so like I had this one-handed crossover where I used one hand and I would dribble and like spin and then put it between my legs and spin. And another one that I'd hold the basketball behind my back and then I'd slide it up my shirt so it was caught between my shirt and my back, and then I would pretend like I passed it. And then people would go running, and then I just reach around, grab it from my back, and take the shot. And because it's hilarious, and people in the crowd love that shit. I did that when I sparred too. I would do like flashy kicks or something to see if I could catch the guy without his guard up. Because it's awesome. People love that shit, and I'm actually putting myself in more danger of losing if I'm actually going to think I might win. So
and some human psychology comes into it too, because like again, the example that's most fresh is the Mario Party thing, where there was one, possibly 2 games that I can remember where JT should have won. Like he just got fucked by like random chance at the end. Like he was winning and then just something horrible happened and he lost. I guarantee though, if you talk to JT, like ask him, like, so Mario Party, how'd that go? In his mind, the way he remembers it now is he should have won at least 5 out of 6 of those games, but he just kept getting fucked over and over again because we focus on like we focus on the hits and not the misses when we're looking for patterns.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how bad we are at random, like we just attributing like loss and attributing randomness.
That's what I was about to say. I think
you got lucky because you won, and I was skilled and I should have won, but the luck did not favor me.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think games like maybe the Hearthstone now with all the new randomicity, and also Mario Party, they monopolize on fundamental attribution error, right? I think that's why they thrive, why it works so well, because when we lose, it's just like in a MOBA. When we lose, so whenever you feel butthurt when someone attacks you, the first thing to do is point out somewhere else. Whether it's like in a fight, this is what I have to do with marital therapy. I'm always like, whenever they come in and they're like, well, she never cleans up, and it's like, well, he fucking is a slob too, and I'm like, hang on, like that's not helpful to just shoot back. You guys are never gonna resolve because it's gonna be a downward spiral, and I guarantee you guys have done this before and might have ended in shouting. They're like, yeah, I'm like, let's try a different way. Let's not do this, and instead just listen.
But even if there's no one to point to, we anthropomorphize the game. Like the Mario Party gods hate me. They fucking hate me. It's the only explanation.
Well, it also there's that, but there's also it allows me. Let's say I'm playing and I'm in JT's position. If I lose, it could be for a number of factors. In fact, not could be. It is because of a number of factors,
right?
And but where do I rest my causality? Right? It's helpful for me to make me feel not butthurt to think about the random aspect and blame that and be like, well, what's that random? I would have won. And been like, yeah, but like. There are plenty of times where you should have lost and the random kicked in, and you did a little better too, because that's called random. Like it's,
it's not just singling you out to shit on you like it must feel.
Yeah. And so like when you lose, you can attribute it. Fundamental attribution bias means our fundamental attribution error is something that we do as humans, and it's horrible. It means like anytime I succeed, it's internal. I'm like, it's because I'm awesome, and anytime I fail, it's external. It's not my fault, right? It was a series of behavior and things that happen, and it's like the random screwed me. And then vice versa, whenever David wins, so let's say you just won, you took the victory from him, he's more likely to because you're winning, he's going to attribute it to external factors. So
right,
like,
that literally happened because there was
let you win.
there was a star I won. Like I won like 2 bonus stars at the end, and it put me far into first place. And one of the bonus stars was like you traveled the least amount of distance, and that's just completely random. It's random that because the bonus star even came up randomly, and then the fact that I rolled lower than him, that was also random. So that was completely random. The other star I won was you won the most mini games. Here's an extra star for that. And I was like, JT, that's pretty skill based. And he's like, yeah, but the fact that that star came up is random, so it's still random that you won. So like no matter what happens, it's still random. In his mind, I still lucked into a victory, even though one of the stars was predicate on the fact that I was more skilled than him in the games that got chosen that game.
Yeah. It's. I know we have a tenacity of like. That's a funny thing. Okay, so we're bad at attributing behavior or like why we do certain things or why certain things happen, and then you get confirmation bias. So like you go, that's it, and then someone says, no, it's not because of this, and then they think as long as I can disprove that one point, I'm still right. But that's not how that works. You have to prove beyond. The burden of proof is on you because you made the assertion. But we're bad at that. We have confirmation bias. So,
but
yeah,
I think
hilarious.
it's actually an asset. I think fundamental attribution error is what makes games like that more playable in the long run.
Yeah.
Because when you lose, you have an easy target. Like you have an easy, non-sentient, non-one of your friends target to get mad at. Like he doesn't get mad at me for winning. He gets mad at the game for fucking him, and the game could take it because it's not a person.
Yeah.
So like we can always attribute like our losses to the game and still have fun playing the game ourselves because we don't hate the winner. It's luck. Luck made the winner, and we don't feel bad for losing because it's luck. Like when you can foister that off on an amorphous random number generator, then you feel like you're still having fun even if you're getting your butt kicked.
Yeah.
At least that's what I noticed.
No, yeah, and that's why MOBAs are so toxic because you look to blame someone, right? Remember, we look to blame whenever we lose rather than look to see what went right. That's our natural aspect because it hurts, and when we're hurt, we want to fight back. It's the same thing over a monkey.
And there's no obvious random.
And emotional pain is actually processed in the same place, the insular cortex, as regular pain.
It's, it triggers that same kind of fight, freeze, or flight defensiveness.
Exactly. So you want to punch back or hit, right? And so this. You want to behave right towards that thing, and so this is people who in MOBAs who end up getting hurt by losing, quote unquote hurt, experiencing emotional pain, discomfort, in other words, in the exact same spot. That's why we actually use the same words, pain. People look that up. Neuroscientists can be credited to that, but still. Then we strike out at someone, and you can't strike at the enemy team because you can be like, oh, they're lucky, but over time, it sort of like self-dissipates because it can't be lucky.
And there's a lot less random chance involved in League of Legends, right? There's
so you can't learn random. Exactly, so you end up blaming it on your teammates, and then people yell at each other, and I'm like, this isn't helpful, guys. Just worry about how well you did, and then worry about how you can improve yourself. Because if you shout at them, so what? They're not gonna believe you. Why would you believe some random guy on the internet who's like, you're bad? I'd be like, I'm not. Not bad. Thanks anyway.
I guess in short, my position is even though a lot of people really hate the random element in these games, only Final Destination, no items. That's the only real way to play Smash Brothers. I actually really like it for those social reasons of making the game more fun for people, making people demonize an imaginary numbers god instead of your friends who you're playing games with.
Yeah.
I think it's actually an asset to games. Maybe that's just the Nintendo fanboy me making like justifications for the blue shell existing, but I really think the games are more fun for the blue shell and for the randomness than they would be without them.
Yeah, like if you came to me and you had if I was like your therapist or something, I would advise you for that because if you cut out that fan base, you've basically castrated yourself. Like, for example, I'm good at Natural Selection 2, right? Mm-hmm. A game that you're not good at, I imagine.
Probably not. Never played it. Probably sucked.
It's very skill-based. You have to play like hundreds of hours before you get good at it, and it's hard. But I really enjoyed it. And if I was going to play that at a LAN party and we came up and I was like, oh man, I wanted them to play it. And then, well, first of all, I gotta handicap myself because if it's not fun, no one wants to play it. And me being good is useless without the context of you guys giving a shit, right? So I want to maximize that context. I want to provide a context where I'm awesome because I practiced it to my friends. And to do that, you need a win condition for them. You need to allow them to enjoy playing the game and also realize that you're good at it. So whenever people ask for those things, take that same parallel to like pro gamers. Pro gamers, it doesn't matter how good you are at a random, like you may be good at like Yo-Noid on the NES. No one gives a shit because no one's gonna watch you play that game because it sucked. Like that game was poorly made, but and it's just got no appeal, But if you say I'm good at something that a lot of people care about, like football, then that's awesome. That's a context where your expertise in that game is very cool. It's got social ramifications, good ones.
Right.
That's what you need to do. You need to make your game entertaining or at least desirable to your people, to your friends, and so yeah, that random aspect allows that. People are going to be more likely to play it, and they're going to see you demonstrating your skill and recognize that, and that's going to feel good for you. So it's a win-win, or it's actually a lose-win, is what it is, because you're losing and you're also winning at the same time.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
I love randomicity, excuse me, in games. Like as far as games I'm playing with my friends, it sometimes is the only way for everyone to have fun, and I'm okay losing. And it also helps me when I do lose because I can attribute that, like it's a double-edged sword, right? Like if I lose, I can be like, oh, you know what? Well, I probably should have won that, but the random number generator, so I don't feel bad about it either. Like I enjoy losing more, and I enjoy like winning more. I don't know if I enjoy winning more, but I definitely enjoy losing more, and I think everyone else does too, which makes it overall pretty fun. Because in any game that has 4 players, like Mario Party, there's going to be one person who's winning a lot and 3 people who are not one. At the end of every game, there's going to be 3 losers and 1 winner, right?
Mm-hmm.
In these kind of games. And so if you're looking at overall happiness levels, like if we're looking at a purely utilitarian approach to this,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have 1 happy person and 3 sad people.
Yeah.
So anything that you can do to make the 3 sad people less sad, even if it takes away from the happiness of the 1 winner, like you're going to have more overall happiness overall, and people are going to want to keep playing the game more.
Yeah. And the cool thing about that is it's kind of like, remember we played Settlers of Catan? No, never mind. Actually, I could do it easily by saying football, right? Everybody knows football. Okay, so if you see a game where it's 27 and, let's say 7 less than 20, 27-20, and it's that way, and it's at the end of the quarter of the fourth quarter, you're still emotionally invested in that. You're like, oh man, my team could still win if your team's down, right? You're biting your nails. You're really excited. You want to see what happens. If it's 14 down and there's a minute to go, there's a point where you're like, ugh, this is an unwinnable scenario.
Yeah, people just stop watching.
Yeah, and so in a game like Mario Party that lasts a little while, you want people to be invested till the end. But the only way to do that, if someone's demonstrably better at the game, is to have a random aspect where they're still in the game.
And they do it so smart too. They'll give the random stars, but they'll stop keeping track of stars at that point, so you don't remember who was ahead going in. And then they'll have everyone floating around. And then one by one, they'll drop out of the running. Like you're invested until the last possible minute when they announce the winner. Whereas with the March Madness game yesterday with the Razorbacks, JT was watching it, and they had like a minute and a half left, and they were down by 9. He just turned it off. He didn't want to see how the game ended because he knew how the game would end.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is that if you've got that random aspect and you could always win, even up till the very end, you're invested, and then you're having fun. And
yeah,
so
it's just smart game design. If you want people to pay attention for the whole game.
Yeah, so the trick is then, it sounds like, if you want a game to be maximized for fun, you're going to want a decent amount of randomness in there, and if you want to make it fun to observe, but but how do you balance that out with, like, you also want a competitive scene? So you can't have a competitive scene for Mario Party.
Yeah, there's never going to be a Mario Party esport, and that's fine. I think it depends on what you're looking for, right? Like StarCraft or League of Legends, they've really minimized the random elements because at that level of play, the uncertainty comes from everyone's so good it's hard to predict a winner.
Yeah.
Like, I think the important thing is that there's an uncertainty in the outcome of the game for as long as possible. Because as soon as, like you said, as soon as you know the game is won, like, you lose interest.
Yeah, there's a big UFC fight coming up where there's this guy, okay, and it's these narratives that sell people. You're absolutely right. It's uncertainty. There's this guy who is in his last 5 years he's been undefeated. His last 13 matches, he has the only belt that's ever been created for his division, for the 135-pound division or 145-pound division. So like when that championship was created, he won that fight, he got the belt. He hasn't lost a fight since, and that was 5 years ago, right? Cool. So you're like, oh, this guy's unstoppable. He's unstoppable. So like some of the fights, his name's Jose Aldo, and some of the fights I'm like, I'm not interested in this. I know how it's gonna go, and I won't even watch. But there's a guy who's come up and he's on like a 6-fight winning streak, and he's ever since he started training seriously, he seems unstoppable, and now he's challenging the fight. He might win it, so I'm gonna go watch that shit. I didn't watch the last
now. It's like
fights.
Goku versus Superman, and you're interested again because who's gonna win?
Yeah, Superman, obviously. Goku.
Yeah, that's who won in the thing, but it was a good fight. It was a good fight, and
yeah. If I was gonna make a video like that, right, and I want to make it fun to observe, I would make, even if it was like Samus versus Pikmin, right? Like, I would make it interesting just because I want people to not be certain up till the very end, Have them like dodging all the shots. Like, Samus is gonna whip his ass, but she's kind of badass.
Mm.
But yeah, you want to keep it. That's fun for the observer.
And games are doing that more and more. Like you'll see, like the newest Smash Brothers, Smash Brothers 4, they have a mechanic where when you get really high damage, you kind of go into a rage mode where you start hitting harder, and it's designed that way so that even if somebody has an early win, it's not a foregone conclusion that they're going to win the entire fight. You know,
Yeah.
'cause now you've got this little like you're still probably going to win, but there's a better chance. Or Hearthstone does this, or Here's the Storm does this too, where if you have a huge level advantage and you die, it takes you a lot longer to come back, and the underdogs to make a comeback. Like they're still probably going to lose, but they're still in it enough to keep you interested.
And
So like
they get less XP from
Right.
from objectives than you do. Yeah, if they're ahead. So then
Right,
you're always
so there are
invested in the game.
So these mechanics that allow the underdog to make a comeback are crucial in order to keep you invested. So it's not like basketball where, oh, we're 9 points down. There's no human way for us to do this. Let's just turn it off.
Yeah.
Or baseball games that people leave in the 6th or 7th inning because they know it's over.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want people to think that. And I think Heroes does that pretty well. Because even if you're winning by a lot, it's not fun. Like I mean, it's kind of fun, but like it's a lot more fun if it's close. Like I remember when I was in basketball, the games that were the closest. Those are the ones I remember. And I remember nail biting. I remember pulling everything out, and we won. And I'll be like, oh! And even if we lost, I was like, I mean, it was crushing. But
Right.
then I was still like, we did our best. We have to feel good about that performance.
So I'd say in an esports arena, you want to minimize the level of randomness more than in just a fun party game, but you do need to leave some kind of mechanic that allows the person losing to make an amazing comeback, because those are the games we remember, the ones where the results aren't known until the end.
Yeah, yeah, and there's actual at least I don't follow a lot of developers, but one I do follow is Blizzard, so I'm being a little biased here, but they've explicitly stated that they're trying to do that with Heroes of the Storm, that trying to keep it close games, and that way whoever wins is still going to win. But it's like that rage mechanic like you were talking about. If you're dying fast, and then all of a sudden I get rage, or like you're beating the shit out of me or something, and all of a sudden I get rage, and I start pummeling you, you're still going to get to the point where you get rage and finish, but it'll seem like it was closer.
Right.
And which is cool. Like that's fun. Then at least like I feel like I got my damage off, because I do that sometimes. Here's the Storm where I see Nova pop out, and she's got this 3-shot thing where it absolutely kills you, right? But it's on a long cooldown, and if she pops out, I turn around and I just dump all my DPS, just because first of all, the cooldown is gonna reset by the time I'm alive. Second of all, I don't know, there's something about it where you're just like, oh fuck you, and it feels good to do that.
Right. It feels good to spit in the wind as you go down, like just like defiance. Then you lose, but at least you feel like you made them fight for it.
Yeah, so like if some terrorist pushed me out of the side of a plane, like a ton of action movies, I would be falling, but I'd be flipping them off the whole way down.
Right.
Like, that's kind of what you're doing. Just doing little spin moves, like the aero acrobats, just fingers out.
Yeah. Yelling into the void, "Take me!" Yeah. So. Well, yeah, I don't know. Those are my thoughts on randomness. I'm a lot more in favor of it than a lot of people who talk about the industry are. I see the utility of it in a lot of places, and I understand why you don't want it like in an esport when it's like such high level competition. But in a lot of games, especially games that that's what I like about Smash Brothers. It's got a scale. You can change the scale of how much random you want. So if I'm playing someone that's really serious, it's like, okay, let's see who the most skilled player is. We can fight that way, but I can also just like random shitty stages with random characters and random items and have a blast doing it that way.
Well, but I don't like I get the competitive thing. I get it. Like if in basketball, I'm trying to think of a high stakes game where I played it with a team. In basketball, it was like that, and I would be pissed if like randomly the basketball turned really heavy, and other times it was like super light, and then I lost because of that.
The basket like shrunk or grew like throughout the game.
But you know what? That would be just fine, because over time we'd still win. As much as we did, we still win more, on average more. And you wouldn't get, like in StarCraft, one of the reasons why it died for me as an esport is I still kind of watch it, but actually no, I haven't watched a match in like 6 months. And I used to watch this. There was always a stream on my side, so I loved it. The reason why is because I know it's going to happen. Like, I will see a tournament, I read the bracket list, I'm like, okay, that guy's definitely going to win, because there's such little random element in there. And I'm like, okay, and that's what you get. You get these narratives of, like, this guy just wrecking everybody and flying to different parts of the world and winning all the prize money. And you know the guy you like, let's say it's not that guy, let's say it's an underdog, and the guy you like is not going to make it. You're like, he's not going to win. I mean, he'll get there, and then you watch the game, and it's just a slow degradation of death,
right.
Slow pile towards death.
Awful death.
all 3 games, and you're like, yeah, this is not fun to watch. And same thing in like football. Like if you knew your team, if the same one won every single time, like over time, it's like whenever the Celtics had a dynasty in basketball or the Lakers. It wasn't.
Or right now, who is it? Like
interesting.
Kentucky, I think, has like just this team of mutants. So they're all just like the best stats on the board right now, and they're just sweeping everyone else out of the brackets. Like that's not fun to
Yeah,
watch.
yeah, and like over time, if that happened over a series of years, if Kentucky did that every single year, people would, even fans of Kentucky would stop going. They'd stop buying tickets.
Right.
Like the biggest tickets are sold, at least in the UFC, I know for sure, is whenever it's a close match, like 2 undefeated people, for example, especially if they're heavyweights, and one should randomly, quote unquote, knock them out, with 1 punch, because heavyweights have enough power where they can do enough damage to knock you out with 1 hit. So they're more fun to watch than like the welterweights and the flyweights, who they punch each other in the face for 30 minutes and no one dies, no one passes out, because it's just not enough power behind it. And people
It's like
love
two
heavyweight
priests
fights.
dueling in World of Warcraft. It's just kind of a boring fight.
Yeah, yeah. So like these games, man, I'll sit down and I'm like, don't touch me, don't talk to me. I gotta watch this whole thing. And then you're watching this like, beautiful athletic movement between each other. Each one's like outthinking each other. You see what they're doing, and then all of a sudden it just snap and it's over, and you're like, whoa! I mean, it's those moments that makes it fun. So like if you're a competitor and that happens to you, that sucks. But over time, and that happens to the UFC, but over time, the guy at the top is the guy that wins on average more than everyone else. Yeah. So. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, randomness is sounds like an enemy and feels like an enemy a lot because of
we have this innate sense of wanting things to be fair. I don't know if that's an American or just a human like cultural value, but we really like fairness, right? And so randomness is the enemy of fairness until you realize that randomness affects everybody the same, which is fair.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a social psychology construct. I think it's called something of a just world.
Just world theory.
That might be just world theory.
Yeah, Leibniz
like
proposed a similar thing that was hilariously lampooned in Candide by Voltaire, where it's just like, it's the best of all possible worlds, there's justice, but yeah, it doesn't exist. We just want it to be true, but it's not. So deal with it.
Yeah. And it's the reason why some people like victim blame people whenever bad things happen. Although, okay, victim blaming. Oh well, you know what?
I hope you went out of time for that rant, but yeah, I know where you're going with that.
Okay. Now I sound like an asshole because I'm like, although,
although sometimes it's okay to blame the victim if she was asking for it.
Like, never blame a victim, obviously, but on the other hand, like, there are certain
things you can do to minimize your risks,
yeah,
and
like,
you should know about.
If I didn't lock my car in Chicago and someone stole shit out of it, it's not my fault. That guy was an asshole. But next time, guess what I'm gonna do? Lock my fucking car, and that's not victim blaming. It's just like, dude, they're bad people. Like, let's just make sure that we
just trying to minimize your risk as much as is like as is fair to expect, right? Like, I'm not saying you cannot drive in Chicago or have a nice car in Chicago. That would be too much. I'm not saying women can't go out at night. That would be too much. But there are things you can do to minimize the risk you are taking.
Yeah, like don't walk through Central Park or something at night in an outfit that looks horrible. And that goes for me too. I wouldn't walk through, like, if I looked, well, I'm white, so sometimes I might get pegged just for that because they assume white tourists have money on them and are easy to pick off. Mm-hmm. And so, some of the criminals there, and whether they're white, black, or whatever, we know it. Like, I know that if I see a white guy with a fanny pack, he's probably a tourist, and if I am going to be a pickpocket, I'm going to target him. And then
right, that's why they tell you not to look like a tourist, like try not to stand out.
Yeah, it's a victim blaming, and I'm like, well, no, like it's just that shitty things are going to happen, and so you just make sure but whatever.
Yeah,
that could go for a while.
Anyway,
yeah.
Any closing thoughts on randomicity? Is the new way of making up for it?
Such a random topic we just came up with.
So random. I love this guy. Look how random he is.
No, but I feel like this was a lot more interesting than when you first proposed. So I'm glad we went through with it. That's because you were like random stuff. I was like, that's not cool. So I hope people.
It's cool because it's random.
So random. I hope people don't skip this one.
I know.
There's a lot of people who like listen to different ones.
And there's like meta random, like how high is the frequency of items? Okay, you have a Pokeball, but you throw it, and then a Goldeen pops out, and then it's like random inside of random inside of random. Like, I just love that stuff because you never know what's going to happen. I think the groundbreaking eureka moment for me from this episode is it's not necessarily random. That makes a game good. That's a means to an end. What makes the game interesting is uncertainty.
Yeah. I wouldn't even be opposed to like this would be cool. Like so like I like going to races. I used to be a foot race running guy, and
Yeah,
I
you're
guess I
quite
still
the
am.
racist.
I was super racist. I was a racer, e-racer, a racer, and a now I like obstacle courses. Those seem fun to me right now. But
Mhm.
I wouldn't even mind so much if like let's say they had everyone start at a random spot on the course. Not that you had to pay the same, but like let's say it was free. Like that would be kind of hilarious if over time, it's more interesting over time. I should put it that way. The longevity of watching that sport is going to be better than
Yeah.
it's initially cool to see who fights, but over time it's like, ugh, this again. Like I don't know.
It's why games of chance are like the oldest human occupations. Like prostitution, beer, and games of chance have been around since before recorded history. And there's a reason they've had the longevity is because we like not knowing what's going to happen. We just do.
Yeah.
Like
And when we
sometimes when
play
I'm picking out a book, I'll just roll a dice because I want to be surprised by what book I'm going to read next. Like,
And really, I mean, it's probably pretty predictable. Like, for example, let's say you're beating me, David, in Mario Party, but I'm still within a shot, and bam, all the random number generators line up perfectly, and I shoot ahead of you, and I win. That feeling is amazing. Whenever you think you're down and out, and then you actually get in, it's just that has to outweigh the times where you get screwed so bad that like where you're way ahead and you get hurt. And it's not going to. That's just a matter of human psychology. You have to be able to frame those.
yeah, and I feel like those
failures.
times where I lose because you shot ahead of me and I should have won, I feel like I don't feel bad losing to that because I know the game should have been mine. So we both, like, even the loser kind of wins in that scenario. Like, we both come away from that game with positive feelings.
It's like whenever I run with my kids, they're like, race you to the car, and like I usually run slow, but sometimes I'll run super fast, and then I'll like trip when I get there, and I'm like, oops, and then they run ahead of me, and they're laughing, they love it, and like they know for damn sure.
They know that they shouldn't have won that, but they feel happy for doing it, and you should have won that, but you feel happy for losing. And that's how I would feel if like you shot ahead of me in a Mario Party. I'm like, oh, it's all right, good job, man. Like high fives. Like I would not feel like threatened by that loss, and you would not feel like
it's win-win.
Yeah, everybody wins.
Because you're like, oh, I would have won if it wasn't for that thing, and I'm like, yeah, but it still happened, and I legitimize it, you illegitimize it, we're both fine.
Yeah.
So like, it's fun for parties, yeah, but I can see the competitive thing. Still, don't get rid of all random chance. Like
there needs to be some uncertainty, or people will get bored with your sport.
Yeah, you need those big moments of like, yeah, because unpredictability is what's gonna bring people back. I mean, look at people who they watch like a TV series. And then they're like, what's going to happen next because of a cliffhanger? We love certainty. And so naturally we do not like uncertainty, or we're not comfortable with uncertainty.
Yeah.
We're intrigued by it. We want it to be resolved, and so we're willing to do a lot of things to do that. Pay money.
I guess I should say we don't love uncertainty, but we also are like, it's like an abusive relationship where we keep coming back to it even though it makes us feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. So, that's I guess the closing thoughts on that.
Cool. Good game design discussion.
Yeah, that was really cool. Well, all right, yeah, then let's move into the feedback session. All right, this is the feedback session of the podcast. So, thank you for everyone that interacted with us. Always appreciate it.
Yes.
Did we get any emails or anything?
No new emails this week, but I'm hoping we get some next time. I want to hear what people's thoughts are on this female skin showing scandal that's on Twitch right now. So if you want to write in and let us know what you think on that, write us at thegametheorypodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, definitely. Also, we have a Twitter, twitter.com/gametheorypod. I'm typically the one who logs into there and does things, and it's been a while because I've been on this really busy at school, and I'm just not of this new generation that constantly checks it.
Kids these days with their social medias and their Twitters.
That's how I feel, man. I don't know. I'm getting older. I was rolling the other day, and I was when I was at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was like, God, you freaking guys, you guys can go forever. It must be because you're young. And I was like, what did I just fucking say?
Yeah, those moments are fun. I get them quite frequently when I make references and nobody picks up, like my 80s movies.
Gosh. I know. And what happens with this new Friends trend? What the hell?
Yeah,
Everybody's watching
no, I
Friends.
don't get that. All this high school is watching Friends right now. I'm like, you guys have better written TV now. The '90s was not about good writing on television. Like, Friends is a mediocre comedy at best. I don't know why everyone's obsessing with it.
I don't know, and it's all over like a 9gag, which is kind of like Reddit for teenagers, for
Just
kids.
just a bunch of one note, like one-dimensional characters, just with predictable plot lines. Like, the only reason it was fine was because we didn't know any better back in the '90s. You know, it was
Yeah,
novel and new.
television was bad.
Yeah,
Television.
television was super bad. Friends was way better than anything else that was preceding it. But if you look back on it, like from the perspective of like good comedies or even just good TV, like I'm watching Better Call Saul right now. That's a well-written show. Friends is not. Why are you watching Friends right now?
Yeah, that's a weird thing, and a weird random one to watch. Why wouldn't they watch Saved by the Bell or something else equally bad?
Yeah, or even Seinfeld. I feel like Seinfeld is a funnier show, but no one cares about it. But whatever. This is our old people grumpy time.
Yeah. But yeah, we had some interaction on the Facebook page. Walking Dead season 3 is coming.
Yes, as is an Attack on Titan live action trailer somebody posted.
Oh,
Alejandro
God,
put that up.
Alejandro.
Alejandro.
Oh man, dude, you can put Attack on Titan on anything, and I'm gonna buy that shit. I just bought a shirt that says what is it? Oh, train like you have Titans to kill, and I wear that shit in public. I don't give a shit. I was running the other day, and I don't think people understand the context, but like I was running the other day with it on.
Like, remember the Titans or Titans as legendary figures that you're gonna surmount.
Exactly, but it has the Survey Corps thing right there, and they don't know what that is either. But it's awesome. I was and I was doing sprints, so I ran by this one group of college kids, and I was just going all out, so it probably looked awesome because they don't see you like 5 minutes down the road whenever you're doing your slow jog for recovery.
We had someone post the Metal Gear Solid's entire story in 2 minutes, which to me, Resident Evil or Metal Gear Solid is a lot like Resident Evil in that I cannot follow the story anymore.
Yeah, playing 1 was a mindfuck. Playing 2 was a headache. Not 1 in a series. I played Metal Gear Solid. I think maybe it was 1. I kind of feel like it was 2. And then I played the whole thing through, and then I got to the end, and I was like, whoa! And then the third one came out, and I was like, I played that I watched someone play it through to the end, and then I was like, what? And then the fourth one, I was like, I don't even. So
yeah, my takeaway from that franchise, the only thing I can remember really now is how great the music was. That's what stuck with me. The storyline is just a cloud. It's the same with Final Fantasy VII, right? I cannot tell you what the story of that game was, but I remember the music. It's awesome.
Or 8. 8 is bad too.
Yeah,
like, what the? You guys rolling an orphanage together or some shit?
What's happening? Yeah, it's this. I guess when we do our video game music episode, we should talk about that because weird storylines are gonna fade, but you're gonna be left with the positive feelings towards that game because the music is so memorable.
Yeah. Yeah, that game, man. And it was like one of the first of its genre, that whole stealth tactical thing.
Yeah.
Like third person. Crazy.
Exclamation point because you got seen.
It's so cheesy. Like everything looks so hardcore and badass, and it's like and then the little box, like you walk around in a box, what the fuck? You put a little cardboard box over your head and you just waddle around and people can't see you. I mean, like that.
Oh man, they did that in Wind Waker too, but it made more sense in the cartoonish world of Zelda than it did in Metal Gear.
Yeah, because those are like dopey like trees or something, and
like
in Metal Gear it's like terrorists. They should not be like, huh? With a little yellow question mark.
And someone, Tommy, posted on Facebook about how one of the Ninja Turtles died in the comics. I guess I won't spoil it in case anyone cares, but when comic book characters die, there's an old adage among comic book fans that no one stays dead in comic books except for Uncle Ben and the second Robin.
Yeah,
and even the second Robin came back, so really it's just Uncle Ben. It's no one stays dead in comic books except for Uncle Ben and the Waynes, like Bruce Wayne's parents.
Yeah. Why can't they come back zombies or superheroes?
Like essentially, even Gwen Stacy's come back. Like essentially, if you're not necessary for the character to exist, like the tragic element that made them be a hero, then you're probably coming back at some point.
Yep. Yeah.
So
yeah,
one of the turtles may be dead, but for how long, who knows?
But at what cost?
But at what cost?
I love that. Well, yeah, so that's pretty much it. If you guys want to leave any reviews, you can go to iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you go. iTunes is one we check all the time, but not that we can't check the other ones as well. But yeah, feel free to do that. It helps like some kind of algorithm where we bump up, and yeah, it really in the past whenever we get a few of those in a row, it's helped a lot. So really appreciate it. I know it's kind of a hassle because I rarely do it,
Yeah,
except for my very favorite podcasts.
it's an
So
insane hassle, but we would appreciate it
yeah.
nonetheless.
But I guess that pretty much wraps up this episode. We don't know what we're doing for the next one. We haven't discussed it, but yeah.
To be announced. Well, it'll be random. I'll tell you that.
Well, random. But we might do like music at some point because we've been talking about that for like a year now.
Yeah, it's one that I've gotten into contact with some agents of like video game violinists and like YouTube stars,
Yeah.
and I just feel like this whole like scheduling thing. It might just be easier for us to just bring JT on because he's got a really good musical theory background, and just
Okay.
get the episode recorded rather than waiting for these quasi internet celebrities to get back.
I thought you said Asians. I thought you said I've been contacting Asians and.
Asians are good at music and driving and math. Wait, yeah, no, I mean like Lindsey Sterling or Taylor Davis, like their agents are kind of in talks with me, but I'd rather just get the episode going at this point.
Sounds good. Well, we'll figure it out and we'll put it up when we get it done. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.